Ready to start traveling again? Want to know what countries are open to Americans right now without having to quarantine? In this video, I'm going to go over the details. Follow along.
You're watching dcbornrob. It's time to travel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe.
Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is you're located. Thanks for watching. My name is Rob Christian, also known as DC Born Rob. DC Rob, I answer to them all. Thank you guys for watching. In this video, I'm going to go over where Americans can travel to right now as of July 6th and all the requirements that are needed to go along with it without having to quarantine. So let's just jump into the first one. First place you're able to go to, Austria. Who wants to go to Austria? Okay, I'm sure somebody does. I'll be in Europe soon enough, so hopefully we'll run past a lot of these places. Okay, travel restrictions. U.S. travelers may enter Austria with proof of vaccination, a recent negative test, or proof of past infection. Those under 12 are exempt. There you go. Feeling like Austria? Let's go. Next up, Bahamas. Travel to the Bahamas or for whoever are fully vaccinated 2 weeks after final shot. Okay, remember 2 weeks, 2 shots in 2 weeks. Need only apply for electronic health visa, which includes mandatory health insurance while in the Bahamas. The application takes up to 48 hours to process. No, let me tell you, flying is rough right now. You know, we just got back from El Salvador, and look for that video in the next couple of days too. But it's rough. It is rough. Okay, next up, Belgium. U.S. travelers may enter Belgium with no testing or vaccination requirements and no quarantine. Come on into Belgium. Let's go in and get us a waffle. Okay, Belize. I always want to go to Belize. Been right next to it in Guatemala. Never made it to Belize. Got to go. Let's see. Fast track entry is available to travelers who arrive with one of the following: proof of full vaccination completed at least 2 weeks prior, negative results from a PCR test taken with no more than 96 hours upon the arrival, or an antigen test. There you go. Okay, it says this: American Airlines will assist travelers in obtaining an at-home test kit before their trip. Really? I just got off of them. And didn't give us any of that. But okay, Bermuda. Let's see, travelers who are fully vaccinated 2 weeks after the final dose and who arrive with negative results from a PCR test conducted no more than 5 days prior to their trip. They'll be tested again on arrival. Once that test comes back negative, they may move more freely about the island. So, vaccine 2 weeks after your second vaccine. And then you have a negative PCR test taken no more than 5 days. And then they're going to test you again when you get there. Anybody want to go to Bahamas? I'm sorry, Bermuda? Okay, Bora Bora, Tahiti, French Polynesia. Quarantine requirements are waived for U.S. travelers who have been fully vaccinated 14 days after final Pfizer or Moderna doses, or 28 days after Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Travelers must also have been in the U.S. for the past 15 days. Okay, so you got to be in the U.S. for 15 days to go to Bora Bora. Looks like I won't be going to Bora Bora. Bosnia. U.S. residents can visit Bosnia and Herzegovina with a negative COVID test no older than 48 hours from the moment of entry. There you go. Caribbean islands. Anguilla. Anguilla is open to fully vaccinated visitors 3 weeks since final dose. 3 weeks, wow. Who receive approval prior to their trip. Okay, visitors must also show a negative PCR test from a up the nose swab conducted 3 to 5 days before their trip. Antigua and Barbuda. All visitors to Antigua and Barbuda age 12 and over, including transiting passengers, so if you're passing through, must bring proof of a negative RT-PCR test taken within the past 7 days. Okay. Mail-in kits are not permitted. They also have to complete a health declaration and may be subject to another COVID test at a cost of $100. Oh, it's a good thing I kept on reading. Okay, next up, Aruba. All U.S. travelers age 15 and older must take a PCR test, oral or nasal test, either before entering Aruba or upon arrival. Those who choose the latter option must quarantine in their hotel room until results are received in no more than 24 hours, and typically 6 to 8 hours, they're saying. Okay, Bonaire. U.S. visitors to Bonaire, age 13 and over, must have a negative result from either NAAT test conducted within 24 hours of their departure for Bonaire. I'm not sure what NAAT is. Bonaire. Or both a PCR test taken within 72 hours of their arrival and an antigen test conducted within 24 hours of their departure. Wow. BVI, British Virgin Islands, fully vaccinated travelers with negative results from a PCR test taken within 5 days of their travel may enter the islands. They will be tested again on arrival and must stay at their hotel until they receive results, which are expected within 24 to 48 hours. So like your hotel. Dominica. Travelers to Dominica must complete health questionnaire at least 24 hours prior to arrival and bring negative results of a PCR test recorded 24 to 48 hours prior to their arrival. Those from a high-risk country, including the U.S., must be given a rapid test on arrival. Once they get the negative results, they can proceed to Safe Nature certified property. They're going to give you set properties where you can visit. Okay, Dominican Republic, the DR. There are no pre-trip requirements to enter the Dominican Republic. Rapid breath tests are administered at random, and it goes between 3% and 15% of all arriving passengers. There you go, wide open. Grenada or Grenada. I guess it depends on if you're from there. All travelers must have negative results from a PCR test conducted within 72 hours of their travel and have filled out a pre-travel authorization, which requires proof of insurance that covers COVID. Okay. Guadalupe, not even sure. I looked at this earlier. I should have looked it up. I don't know where Guadalupe is, but if you want to go to Guadalupe and you are a U.S. citizen who is fully vaccinated, and 2 weeks after that, 4 weeks past a single injection, in case you do the Johnson & Johnson, visitors must also have negative results from a PCR test carried out within 72 hours of their departure. So you got to have both. Okay, let's talk about Jamaica. Travelers can visit Jamaica without a quarantine, provided that they stay on a property of their accommodations in the resilient corridors. Again, they're giving you certain hotels. I don't know if they clean extra, who knows, but you have to stay at certain hotels. And these hotels are stretching along the coast from Negril to Port Antonio and from Milk River to Negril. These travelers may also visit certified tourist attractions within the corridor. Okay, Martinique. Martinique is open to U.S. travelers who have been fully vaccinated. Again, 2 weeks after a double injection or 4 weeks after the single. Those over 11 years old must also have negative results from a PCR test carried out within 72 hours. So some of these places are doubling up to be tight. I feel them. And at least my insurance pays for the test, so I don't have to worry on this side. But I've heard it's expensive. Well, I know it's expensive. Puerto Rico. Visitors to Puerto Rico must complete a travel declaration form. Fully vaccinated travelers are arriving on a flight from the U.S. mainland do not need to show COVID test results. Unvaccinated travelers must provide proof of a negative molecular COVID-19 test taken within the past 72 hours. Otherwise, they will be required to quarantine until they receive negative results from a molecular test taken within 72 hours of their arrival. Okay, so you can go there and take the test too, but you're going to be waiting. So like your hotel. That's the moral of this story. Like your hotel. Sabah. Where is Sabah? Is that near Shaba? I have no idea. Fully vaccinated travelers may enter Sabah with no quarantine. They must apply for approval before their trip and show negative test results for a PCR or antigen test that is no more than 72 hours. So again, doubling up. Come on in, but they're doubling up. St. Lucia. Let's see. Travelers to St. Lucia must have confirmed reservations at 1 or 2 COVID certified accommodations. Again, staying at certain hotels. Visitors age 5 and over must provide a proof of a negative PCR test. Wow, 5 years old. A PCR test taken no more than 5 days prior to their travel. So on Wednesday or later, well, they're counting the days up for you. I get that. St. Martin and St. Martin. Travelers to the Dutch side of the island who are aged 10 and over from high-risk countries, including the U.S., must bring negative results from a RT-PCR test using the nasopharyngeal swab taken within 72 hours of the last leg of their flight to St. Martin, or negative results from certain approved antigen tests. Okay, Turks and Caicos. Travelers are allowed to enter Turks and Caicos provided they have proof of a negative PCR test taken within 5 days of travel, including the day of their flight. Mailing kits are not allowed. Those are age 9 and under are exempt, 9 and under. Okay, U.S. Virgin Islands. Travelers to the U.S. Virgin Islands must use this travel screening portal to provide proof of negative results from a molecular or antigen test taken within 5 days of their travel to the islands, or negative results from an antibody test taken in the past 4 months. Passengers who have not done so may not be allowed to board the flight. They are checking on this side too, believe it. Okay, Colombia, we know about that. Travelers may enter Colombia. A COVID test is not required regardless of vaccination status. So come on in, but travelers must fill out the immigration pre-enrollment form between 1 and 24 hours before their flight. Visitors are also asked to download the Corona app, which is the CheckMate. Okay, Costa Rica. Travelers to Costa Rica must complete a health pass prior to travel, but do not need to be tested before their trip. There you go. Visitors must have proof of medical insurance that covers COVID-related bills in Costa Rica up to at least $50,000 and lodging expenses related to the pandemic. So you better have insurance, but you can go to Costa Rica. Croatia, love Croatia. Residents of the United States can enter Croatia provided they have proof of accommodations paid in advance in full and one of the following: a negative result from a PCR or rapid antigen test taken within 48 hours of their arrival in Croatia. Those using an antigen test must be tested again 10 days after the first one, if still in Croatia. Okay, proof of full vaccination completed at least 14 days prior, or a medical certificate stating the traveler has recovered. So remember the fit to fly if you have had COVID already. Okay, Czech Republic. U.S. travelers may enter the Czech Republic with no COVID-related entry requirements or restrictions. However, travelers must have one of the following to enter restaurants, hotels, and other service establishments: proof of vaccination. You can come to the country, you just can't eat in a restaurant unless you have vaccination. Again, of course, you have your 2 weeks after, and a negative COVID test, PCR, within the past 7 days, or antigen test. Now, how do they know that at your restaurant? Do you have to carry the COVID card? You know, I carried this card. Good thing we just carried this to El Salvador, but had we not, we'd have been up the creek. And it's a piece of paper. Anybody can forge that thing. Ours were good, though. Denmark. Okay, fully vaccinated U.S. travelers 2 weeks or after the final dose may enter Denmark. No testing or quarantine required. Boom. There you go. Denmark. Okay, Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the UAE. Love Dubai. Travelers have to show a negative PCR test result from the previous 96 hours in order to board a commercial flight to Dubai. Some airlines require a test within the past 72 hours. Passengers may be tested again on arrival, and then children under 12 are exempt. Okay. Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands. Travelers entering Ecuador must bring proof of one of the following: a negative RT-PCR or rapid antigen test taken up to 3 days prior to their arrival in Ecuador, fully vaccinated, or recovery from COVID infection with onset at least 1 month prior. And that means you need to get that fit to fly form filled out by your doctor. It's just a piece of paper, supposedly, where your doctor says, okay, he had it, he's fit to fly, we tested again, he doesn't have it. Egypt. Okay, travelers can enter Egypt with the negative certificate, paper, not digital. There's a good one. Okay, so make sure you print that out. From a PCR test, for most travelers, this test must be performed 72 hours before their flight. The U.S. Embassy says that those flying from the U.S. can be tested up to 96 hours prior to departure. However, the Egypt experts we know and trust advise travelers to be tested within 72 hours to avoid being denied entry Children under 6 are exempt. By the way, this is coming from, I'm reading this entire list from wendyperrin.com. I looked through a few, and this was, I guess, the easiest to read through that I found and most up to date. Estonia, U.S. travelers may enter with no testing or quarantine, provided they have been fully vaccinated at least in the last year or have recovered from COVID in the past 6 months. Okay, you do have a question there when you land too. France, we will be in France soon. U.S. travelers may enter France provided they are fully vaccinated 2 weeks or after final Pfizer or Moderna dose and 4 weeks after Johnson & Johnson, or showed negative results from a COVID test conducted no more than 72 hours before entering France. Children under 11 are exempt from testing. Those aged 11 to 17 treated as vaccinated if accompanied by a fully vaccinated parent. Okay. Georgia, not the state, but the country. U.S. travelers may enter Georgia provided they have negative results from a PCR test conducted within 72 hours of their departure and have filled out pre-registration form. They must travel by air directly from certain countries. That list includes the U.S. and EU member states. Land, sea, and borders are closed to entry. So Georgia, to get to Georgia, you got to come directly from the U.S. You cannot transfer. Germany, we will be in Germany soon too. U.S. travelers may enter Germany with no quarantine, provided they have proof of one of the following. Ooh, this stuff I need to know. Full vaccination, a negative COVID test conducted no more than 72 hours before entry, or recovery from the past infection. That means we need to take this test in France or somewhere else. Wow. Okay. But that's Germany. Okay. Greece. There's another one. We will be in Greece soon. At least I'm told so. I go where I'm told. Okay. Travelers from certain countries, including the U.S., may enter the country with no quarantine, provided they have been fully vaccinated. 14 days past the final dose can show that they have recovered, or they can show that they've been recovered from COVID in the past 9 months, or have a negative PCR test that was conducted within the previous 72 hours prior to arrival. Okay, got that. We can go to Greece. Okay, Hungary. Feeling a little hungry? U.S. travelers may enter Hungary via land or river. Entry via air requires the European Green Pass, which is not currently available to U.S. residents. Visitors must show proof of vaccination recovery from COVID or a negative PCR test in more than 72 hours. Now, let me read this again. Via land or river. Okay, via land or river. So we don't need that. We're flying in. Oh, well, land. Oh, wait a minute. So that means we got to get on Ryanair or something like that. We cannot take the train. Trains over there sharp. Okay, Iceland. Love Iceland. Well, I didn't really enjoy my stay there. I only had one night, and it wasn't a good time. Iceland is open to travelers from the United States. Travelers must complete a pre-registration form before their arrival and are encouraged to download the Ranking C19 app for contact tracing. Okay, so they want to track you. Travelers who are fully vaccinated, as well as those who can provide valid proof of prior infection, will be tested at the airport on arrival. Wow, so you still get that test. Indonesia, Bali, Bintan, and Batam. Indonesia's tourism ministry has announced that the expected late July, early August reopening of the Bali, Bintan, and Batam to travel has been put on hold. Wait a minute. I thought you said you're on this list. Let's see. Okay, until the cases fall below 30 or 40 a day. Wow, that's almost nothing. So Indonesian Bali is not open as of today, which is July the 6th. Ireland, love Ireland too. Dublin, Ireland. Ireland has announced that starting July 19th, vaccinated travelers from the U.S. will be able to enter with no quarantine. Unvaccinated travelers must bring a negative COVID test conducted within the previous 72 hours and will have to self-isolate until testing negative again for their arrival. Okay, Israel. Travel restrictions. Israel is open to a limited number of organized groups of vaccinated travelers. So you got to be in a group. All visitors must have negative results from a PCR test within the previous 72 hours to board a flight to Israel, and on arrival will be given a second PCR test as well as a serological test to prove that they are vaccinated. Wow. Whoa. You got 2 tests and you got to be in a group. Okay, Italy. U.S. travelers may enter Italy with a proof of vaccination 2 weeks past the final dose, recovery from a past infection, or a negative test conducted within 48 hours of their departure. Minors age 6 and over who are accompanied by a parent or caregiver must be tested before their trip. Okay. Jordan. Travelers may enter Jordan with negative results from a PCR test conducted no more than 72 hours prior to their arrival. Travelers age 5 and over who are not fully vaccinated must take a second test on arrival in Amman at a cost of about $40. That's not bad. Those who test negative do not have to quarantine to obtain the testing examination. Vaccine travelers must register at Gateway to Jordan. Everybody has their own little app, it looks like. Latvia. U.S. travelers may enter Latvia provided they are fully vaccinated or tested negative within 72 hours of their arrival. Okay, travelers must fill out the health questionnaire at least 48 hours before crossing the border. There's so many hoops. Man, it was stressful just getting to El Salvador. All the hoops we got to jump through, and you don't know if they're going to let you in, and they're never the friendliest people. The first people, they're like the hostess in the restaurant. The first person you see should be cheery and welcoming. I've never entered a border where they were cheery and happy to see me, except Jamaica. They were playing welcome and all that. Okay. Lithuania. U.S. travelers may enter Lithuania with proof of full vaccination. Visitors must fill out a health questionnaire and show QR code before boarding the flight to Lithuania. There you go. Luxembourg. U.S. travelers may enter Luxembourg with proof of one of the following: fully vaccination, recovery from COVID in the past 6 months, or a negative NAT test performed within 72 hours before their flight, or a negative antigen test less than 48 hours prior. What is NAT? N-A-A-T. Okay, the Maldives. Let's see, travelers to the Maldives must have a confirmed booking at a resort, hotel, guest house, or live aboard. Travelers may split their time between 2 resorts, but must request approval of their split stay from the Ministry of Tourism 2 days prior to their travel. Passengers must provide proof of full vaccination at least 2 weeks prior, proof of a negative PCR test from 96 hours prior to their departure, and submit a health declaration within 24 hours of their departure. Whoa. Where is that again? You got to work to get into the Maldives. Okay. Malta. Travelers from 38 states. Wow, they're getting down to picking states. Travelers from 38 states, as well as Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, may enter Malta with negative results from a swab PCR test conducted 72 hours prior to their arrival. Wow. You better look at that list if you're going to Malta. Mauritius. How do you say it? Obviously, I don't even know where it is. Mauritius has announced that it will welcome fully vaccinated travelers at least 3 weeks after final dose, starting July 15th. So that's next week. Visitors must also take a PCR test 5 to 7 days before their departure. There you go. Mexico. Gotta love Mexico. Is next door. Mexico has remained open to travelers arriving by the air throughout the pandemic. Visitors may be subject to health screenings and temperature checks. Those exhibiting symptoms may be required to quarantine. No pre-trip COVID testing is required. Just go. And I know the land border is open too. Montenegro. U.S. travelers may enter Montenegro with a negative PCR test not older than 48 hours or a positive COVID antibody result of the IgG class obtained by ELISA serologic. Test no more than 30 days or older. Have proof of 7 days have elapsed since receiving the second dose of your coronavirus vaccine. Okay. Morocco. Travelers from visa-exempt countries, including the U.S., are allowed to enter Morocco, provided they have a reservation in the country with a hotel or travel agency. Travelers age 11 and over must bring proof of a negative PCR test conducted within 72 hours of their travel and must complete a passenger health form. The Netherlands. U.S. travelers may enter the Netherlands with no testing or proof of vaccination required. Travelers by air must fill out the health declaration. There you go. Netherlands. Yeah, I don't mind getting back there. Peru. Travelers may enter Peru via air. Land borders are closed. You may enter with a negative PCR test or antigen test conducted within 72 hours of your flight, or a medical certificate of epidemiological discharge, meaning a fit to fly letter. Visitors may skip the 14-day quarantine provided they receive negative results from an antigen test given on arrival. Okay, what happens if you get there and you positive? They put you back on the plane? Okay, Poland. U.S. travelers may enter Poland on commercial flights bypassing quarantine if they show proof of fully vaccination 14 days after the last dose, or proof of recovery in the past 6 months. Otherwise, visitors can leave quarantine once they receive negative results from a test conducted within Poland. Portugal. Okay, U.S. travelers may enter Portugal with negative results from a NAAT, says such as a PCR test. So I'm just not spelling it out right now, but that NAAT means it could be a PCR test conducted within 72 hours of boarding their flight, or a rapid antigen test conducted within 24 hours of boarding. Travelers age 2 and under are exempt. Whoa, 2 and under. That's bring your baby. That's it. Romania. U.S. travelers may enter Romania with no restrictions. It is recommended that visitors bring a vaccination certificate or proof of recent negative COVID test. Medical insurance that covers COVID is also recommended, but not required. There you go. Safari Africa. Travelers to Botswana must have a negative PCR test taken within 72 hours prior to their departure. Visitors will be screened on arrival and given a rapid antigen test. Travelers exiting Botswana must also present a negative PCR test from the previous 72 hours. Kenya. Travelers to Kenya must bring proof of a negative COVID test done within 96 hours of their arrival and will be asked to fill out a health declaration form and passenger locator card. Okay, Mozambique. Travelers can enter Mozambique if they have negative results from a PCR test conducted in their country of origin within 72 hours of their departure. Okay, Namibia. Travelers may enter Namibia provided they have proof of a negative PCR test within what's no older than 7 days. 7 days still, I still don't get that. You can get it within 7 days, come on. But you have 7 days to take that test. They must also fill out a health declaration form. Okay, Rwanda. Passengers arriving in Rwanda must carry proof of a negative RT-PCR COVID-19 test taken no more than 72 hours prior to their departure for Rwanda. All visitors will then be tested again upon arrival at their own expense and must await their results for approximately 24 hours at a hotel with a quarantine floor. Travelers must stay in their room, including for meals, until presenting a second negative test. And those who test positive will be quarantined at a government facility. That means you got to leave the hotel and go to the projects. I don't know where they put you. South Africa. South Africa is open to travelers who present a negative COVID test no more than 72 hours from their time of departure. Travelers will be screened for symptoms on arrival and will be given a rapid antigen test upon arrival at a cost of about $25. Uganda. Uganda does not recommend that unvaccinated travelers visit at this time. Okay. Visitors must bring negative results from a PCR test done within 120 hours of boarding of aircraft to Uganda. Zambia. Tourists may enter Zambia with a negative PCR test conducted within the previous 72 hours. Travelers with a temperature of 38, I still don't know what that is, 38 degrees Celsius. What is that? Why didn't they teach Americans this, that the rest of the world is on a metric system? We're the only isolated country that I know of. Zimbabwe. Travelers arriving in Zimbabwe must bring proof of a negative PCR test done within 48 hours of departure. Serbia. Travelers age 12 and older entering Serbia must bring negative results of a PCR test taken in the previous 48 hours. Travelers from the United States may also present a negative antigen test. The Seychelles. Travelers may enter the Seychelles with negative results from a RT-PCR test taken no more than 72 hours prior to travel. Once you have your test certificate, you may apply for a health travel authorization, which you need to show when you check your flight. Visitors may also have to have travel health insurance to cover potential COVID-related costs. Slovenia. U.S. travelers who are fully vaccinated 7 days since second dose. They're saying only 7 days past the second dose of Pfizer and 14 days past Johnson & Johnson or second dose of Moderna. Have a negative test conducted within 48 hours of their arrival or recently recovered from COVID, they enter Slovenia. Spain. Travelers arriving in Spain directly from the U.S. need not present proof of vaccination or a negative test. Transiting through a third country without leaving the airport is allowed. Wow. That's good to know. Spain is open. Okay, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is open to international travelers, provided they take a PCR test that returns negative results within 72 hours of their flight. In order to apply for the necessary visa ahead of the trip, visitors must have a booking at a certified, safe, and secure level 1 hotel. Okay, you got to stay at certain ones. You have to take a PCR test there too, which is another $40. Okay, Sweden. U.S. travelers may enter Sweden with a negative test conducted no more than 48 hours before their arrival. Those under 18 years of age are exempt. Sweden is open. Switzerland. Switzerland is open to U.S. travelers who are fully vaccinated 14 days since the final dose, within the last 12 months, have recovered from COVID-19 in the past 6 months, or have negative results from a PCR test not older than 72 hours or antigen tests not more than 48 hours. And, I get this one. I like Switzerland. Okay, Thailand, Phuket only. Fully vaccinated U.S. travelers 14 days since final dose may visit the island of Phuket and bypass the country's mandatory quarantine on arrival. Those under 18 are exempt. Travelers must fly directly to Phuket without transiting through Bangkok and may have spent previous 21 days in an approved country. Okay. Visitors must also show proof of a negative RT-PCR test conducted no more than 72 hours before their dates and payment for their stay at one of these plus approved hotels. Turkey. Travelers to Turkey. Turkey's an option too. Must present proof of full vaccination recovery from COVID within the previous 6 months. A negative PCR test made no more than 72 hours prior to arrival, or negative antigen tests made no more than 48 hours prior to arrival. All travelers must also complete a form for entry in Turkey within 72 hours of their flight. Travelers may be tested on arrival, but will not have to quarantine before results are returned. So, there you go. It's a trust system. Uzbekistan. Travelers may enter Uzbekistan, a negative PCR test conducted an approved facility within 72 hours of checking in for their flight for their first trip in the country. Visitors must complete a health screening form on arrival. There you go. And then there's just a list of places that are open, but they don't recommend them. And get this, El Salvador is on it. And we loved El Salvador and cannot wait to get back. They are top of the list. So I hope this helps you guys in your travels. It is time to get back out there. I encourage you to travel. Take that chance. I just got an email earlier today from someone while I was gone that asked me, what do you think about going anyway? I have that worry about possibly coming back. I mean, that worry's got to be there. That's why you got to play it safe while you're there. If you're going to be around who's who and whoop-de-whoop, then guess what? Then there's a possibility you could come up positive, baby. And you ain't trying to do that, man, because you know what? You're going to be stuck like Chuck. Don't get stuck like Chuck. And don't get got. Be safe, guys. Travel safely. Help each other. And more news to come on the Reed case as well as the brothers in Ecuador. Coming soon. Thanks for watching.
We have a YouTube channel. Like it.
Please comment and share if you like the video. Please subscribe and kick the bell.